A working forklift is an impressive piece of equipment, jockeying and moving large loads with apparent ease. But what you see is misleading. Every forklift, even one that looks so impressive, is unstable and awkward. In fact, when an unloaded lift truck like this fully extends its mast, one person can tip it over by simply pulling on the overhead guard. A never-ending stream of challenges make operating a forklift serious and demanding work. One misstep can tip your truck, drop your load, or crush a fellow worker. That's why state and federal regulations require you to be trained and certified and at least 18 before you can operate a forklift. Your training must be reviewed and updated at least every 3 years, regardless of how long you've been an operator. You also need additional training after any accident or near miss, if you're observed operating in an unsafe manner, and anytime your work conditions or equipment change. In the next few minutes, we're going to explore some of the most important things you need to know to operate a forklift safely. We'll examine operating conditions and other factors that affect stability, load manipulation including lifting, traveling, stacking and unstacking, and specialized maneuvers, safety requirements involving the truck, traffic, and pedestrians, hazardous operating conditions including activities, environments, and locations. Coupled with your hands-on training, this information can help you obtain or update your operator certification and make you a safer, more efficient forklift operator. Let's start by assuming this is a normal workday. You arrive at your worksite, perform a pre-shift inspection on your forklift, and get your assignment for the day. Now you can just relax and do your job, right? Wrong. When you operate a forklift, every load, every lift, and every carry must be evaluated and planned. No two tasks are the same. Even traveling the same route with the same load is different each time because of traffic and pedestrians, and those unexpected things that pop up and can topple your truck with no warning. That's why planning is your key to success and safety. You must know the capacity of your truck as listed on the data plate and never exceed it. If you use attachments, it's your job to know how they affect operation and how they change the capacity of the truck. As a certified operator, you're on constant lookout for things that make your truck less stable. Things like uneven surfaces, an elevated load, turning while loaded, operating on slopes, tilting the load, and unbalanced loads. Let's look at how some of these things affect your day-to-day work. Before you move your forklift, examine the surfaces where you'll be driving. Be sure they are strong enough to hold your truck and its load. Look for loose objects, bumps, and debris that can jerk your steering out of control or even bring your truck to an unplanned stop and topple your load. Always obey posted speed limits and be ready to go even slower when necessary for safety. In most work sites, a quick walking speed is about as fast as you should travel. Speeding, rough surfaces, and quick maneuvers all make your truck less stable, so find out the challenges that lie ahead. Try to avoid having your wheels on two different surfaces, like pavement and gravel, or uneven surfaces. This reduces traction and balance. When it can't be avoided, slow down and cross the change in materials or elevation slowly and at a 45-degree angle. It's also best to cross railroad tracks and similar edges diagonally instead of straight on. That way, only one wheel at a time crosses the edge. Tires are designed to hold weight, not provide traction, so be sure to clean up and avoid spills, oil, and wet spots instead of spreading them by driving through them. When you check the data plate in your lift truck, you'll find information about the maximum load under certain conditions. Never exceed your truck's listed capacity, but it's your job to learn more. Check the operator's manual to find out how load shape, size, carrying angle, and counterweight built into the truck affect stability. Before every lift, visualize your load and how it relates to the stability triangle. You can picture it by drawing lines from the two ends of the front drive axle to meet at the center or pivot point of the back steering axle. If you keep the combined center of gravity, the point of greatest downward force, within the stability triangle, your lift truck will stay stable. But if the center of the downward force of your load extends beyond the stability triangle, you risk tipping over or losing your load. As you gain experience, you'll learn what you need to do to increase stability under changing conditions. For example, reducing your load helps keep you stable when carrying a tall, wide, or oddly shaped load, or when using attachments. If there's a tight turn, ramp, high lift, rough route, or if the load can't be centered on the pallet, reduce load weight to stay stable. Spacing forks as far apart as possible also helps increase stability. So does wrapping, strapping, and securing loose or slippery items. With practice, you'll soon learn the delicate dance of weight and balance that is the mark of the professional operator. Picking up a load correctly is a science that combines good judgment of load and conditions with the laws of physics. Before you lift any load, make sure it is safe to lift and that no one is nearby. Now square up on the center of the load and approach it straight on. When fork tips are about a foot from the load, stop. Level the forks and drive forward slowly until the load rests against the mast. Now lift the load high enough to clear whatever is under it and tilt the mast back slightly to a traveling position. This tilt places the load's center of gravity over your drive wheels. If there's another load in front of the one you're lifting, lift without tilting. Remember to lift only enough to clear the other load. Now look over both shoulders to make sure it's clear. Back out about a foot. Stop, lower the load, and tilt the mast back to a traveling position. When you reach the set-down point, square up and stop about a foot away. Drive forward until you're about halfway into the loading area. Stop. Level the forks and drive the rest of the way in. Lower the load. Be sure the load is seated, then lower the fork slightly to keep from hooking the load on pull-out. Look over both shoulders to be sure it's clear and back out slowly. Don't forget to watch for rear swing as you turn. Working with loads in high stacks uses many of the same maneuvers used with normal loads. The big difference is that the higher you raise your mast, the more it wobbles, and the less stable forklift and load become. To remove a load from a high stack, keep forks near the floor until you stop straight on and about a foot away from the stack. Raise the mast until the forks are at the right height. Move forward slowly until the load is flush with the back of the forks. Lift the load high enough to clear the item below, look over both shoulders, and slowly back straight out until you've cleared the edge of the stack. Stop and lower the load to traveling position, tilt the load back, stay within the lines, and you're ready to go. To stack one load on top of another, approach it slowly and squarely. Stop about a foot away and lift the mast high enough to clear the top of the stack. Inch forward until the load is square over the top of the stack. Level the forks and lower the mast until the load is no longer supported by the forks. Make sure forks are level so you don't hook anything. Look over both shoulders and back straight out. When working with stacks, it's important to make sure the top load sits squarely on the stack. Being just a little off can topple the whole stack. Remember these key stacking rules. Make sure you have enough overhead clearance and watch for electrical lines, pipes, light fixtures, and sprinkler heads. Never raise or lower a load unless you are at a full stop. Always approach the load straight on and remove it by backing straight out. Never attempt to turn with your mast raised. This greatly reduces your stability and almost guarantees a tip over. Many accidents happen when you're traveling with a load or maneuvering in tight places. Let's examine some travel precautions first. Always travel with the load tilted slightly back and resting against the mast. Forks or attachments should be as close to the floor as possible. In most cases, elevating the forks an inch or two at the heels and 4 to 6 inches at the tips should clear most surfaces. Travel at a slow, steady speed. Observe posted limits and keep your speed low enough that you can stop suddenly without losing your load. As you drive, stay within the floor markings and out of pedestrian lanes. Because forklifts operate equally well in forward and reverse, drive in reverse anytime your load obstructs your vision. You also should travel in reverse when taking a load down a ramp or incline so that your load is always on the high side of the slope. This is another instance where the professional operator must plan the route ahead of time. That way, you're sure to turn around before the slope begins. Trying to turn on a slope or grade is asking for a tip-over. Operating in traffic and around people tests your skills and clearly demonstrates your judgment. Put on your seatbelt or other restraining device every time you climb into the lift truck. It's required even if you're on a flat surface and moving only a short distance. Every forklift is less stable on turns, so slow down, swing wide, and turn smoothly. Because you can't stop quickly, always keep at least 3 truck lengths between you and other vehicles. Never swerve around another vehicle or pass at intersections, blind spots, or other dangerous locations. Stay alert for pedestrians. They always have the right-of-way. So do emergency vehicles. Most people don't know that you can't maneuver or stop quickly, so their safety rests on your shoulders. Never drive up to someone standing next to a fixed object like a bench, platform, or dock. If you fail to stop in time, or if you lose your load, they could be crushed. When you stop the truck, be sure not to block doors, fire exits, stairways, or access to safety equipment like fire extinguishers or emergency showers. If you leave the forklift, lower the forks, put the controls in neutral, and set parking brakes, not just the Myco brakes. Chock the wheels if you're on an incline. Remember that if you go 25 feet or more from the truck, or if it is out of your direct view, you always must turn off the truck. Operating a forklift is a serious responsibility. Keep the controls and your hands and feet clean, and don't extend your head or any other body part outside the running lines of the truck. Don't use your truck to give rides or to joke around or race with other operators. Don't use your forks as pushers or to open doors. These are all activities that show you're not qualified to be a certified operator and are certain to take you off the truck and put you back into training. Lifting people with your truck requires special precautions. First, add up the weight of the people, equipment they are using, and platform or other attachments to see if your truck can safely lift the load. Next, be sure the hydraulics won't let the lift mechanism drop faster than 135 feet per minute. Once you're sure the load and equipment are compatible, check to see that the work platform has an approved safety railing and is firmly attached to the carriage. There should also be a mast and shear guard to prevent personnel from contacting the chains. Whenever you raise or lower people, you must be in the normal operator's seat or position and attend the truck as long as workers are on the platform. It's also your responsibility to be sure there is an overhead guard if overhead hazards are present. Anytime there is not a regulation railing around the work platform, elevated personnel must tie off to the mast and wear fall protection. Fall protection also is required whenever an operator-up high lift truck is used to elevate personnel. Although older regulations allowed use of a body belt with lanyard for fall protection, newer interpretations require a body harness. Because the kind of protection required depends on so many variables, check with your supervisor to make sure elevated personnel are properly protected. A few additional cautions about elevating personnel. When using an elevated platform or operator-up high lift truck, it's important to bring personnel to the ground and off the platform before you move the truck. Never walk, stand, or allow anyone to pass under an elevated load or raised forks. Never use a lift truck to elevate equipment or vehicles so personnel can work on them. Never allow anyone to stand on the forks. They are too slippery and too narrow to provide secure footing. Just as every load, lift, and carry is different, so are the equipment and working conditions you face. When most people think of a forklift, they think of the counterbalanced sit-down lift truck. This is what most operators use, but because it requires at least an 11-foot wide aisle to turn, it can't be used where spaces are tight. If you work in narrow aisles, you'll use a small lift truck with a short turning radius. Some examples of these are high-lift straddle trucks, order pickers, and swing mast and turret trucks. Swing mast and turret trucks can work in aisles less than 6 feet wide. A swing mast truck looks like a standard forklift, but can swing its mast to a 90-degree angle to allow it to stock pallets to one side of its direction of travel. The order picker is designed for manual handling of less than pallet-sized loads in racks and can operate in aisles less than 6 feet wide. The operator up design has fixed forks attached to a platform that elevates the operator, who manually loads and unloads the racks. It can be controlled from the ground and with hand controls while elevated. Always tie off to the mast or overhead guard when elevated, and bring the platform down before traveling. One of the newer trucks you'll see is the reach truck, also available as the stand-up reach, the straddle reach, and double-deep reach truck. It is a narrow aisle truck that can raise the forks 30 to 40 feet high while the operator stands at the controls at ground level. It is specifically designed for racked pallet storage. Many of these trucks use a joystick or single control handle and a stand-up deadman type braking system that stops the truck if you remove your foot. Some reach trucks can travel sideways or even pivot in as little as 10 feet. Others have forks attached to a scissors-like mechanism to allow them to reach far back into deep racks. One final group of specialized lift truck is the Class 7 rough terrain vehicle. Most are designed for heavy loads like lumber and outdoor use on rough ground. Most have heavy-duty pneumatic tires, four-wheel drive, run on diesel, and include rollover protection. Many have an enclosed cab and very large, heavily treaded tractor-type tires. Experts generally agree that all these specialized lift trucks are more difficult for the operator to master. That's why ongoing practice and your hands-on training are so important. Up to this point, we've looked at basic operating conditions, but the certified operator also must be ready to deal with hazardous operating conditions, including hazardous activities, hazardous environments, hazardous locations. Two of the most hazardous operating conditions you face as a certified operator are working on slopes and working on docks. We already reviewed some basics for working on slopes, but their hazards make them worth repeating here. The ramp is one of the most common slopes you'll encounter. Always drive with your load on the high side of any slope or ramp. When traveling up the ramp, raise your forks slightly to avoid scraping them on the ground. Once all wheels are on the ramp, lower the forks to the normal traveling position. Be careful when you crest the top of the ramp. If your load is heavy, your steering wheels could lift off the ground. When you're traveling down a ramp or hill, drive in reverse to keep your load on the high side of the slope. At the bottom, raise the load slightly so it doesn't scrape. The procedure changes with an empty lift truck. Here, it's best to back up a slope and drive down with forks facing forward. Work on ramps or slopes can be made safer if you use a spotter. As in all forklift operations, planning ahead can help you get the job done more safely and efficiently. One of the most common forklift accidents occurs when drivers drive off the edge of a ramp or dock. Because your lift truck is so delicately balanced, just one wheel slipping off the edge can send you and your truck flying. Or what if a trailer or rail car moves as you drive in? Your wheels fall into the void and you and your truck crash to the ground. In fact, many experts believe the loading dock is the most dangerous area for lift truck operators and for other personnel as well. Operators should stay well back from the edge of ramps and docks. Make sure dock boards or bridge plates are properly secured and strong enough to handle the combined weight of your truck and load. Learn about and use all available signaling and safety devices. Before you drive from a dock into a rail car or trailer, be sure wheels are chocked or blocked. Be certain the container is securely fastened to the dock and your seatbelt is tight. Trailers should have brakes set and be resting on steel jacks if they are not hooked up to a tractor. Have the bridge or dock plate as level as possible and free of oil, dirt, water, ice, or snow. This reduces your chance of skidding sideways and sliding off the edge. Some facilities now use electronic systems to increase safety on docks. Many also use dock locks to secure the container to the dock levelers, and truck restraining devices. The professional operator masters and uses all safety systems that are available. A few final points about working with containers. Don't forget to double-check whether the trailer or rail car floor is strong enough to hold your forklift and its load. Make sure the roof is high enough for you to pass and that you have enough light to work. If you're driving onto a flatbed trailer or rail car, it's like driving on a dock or ramp. Safety sidebars and a spotter can help keep you from driving over the edge. Another type of hazardous operating condition is the hazardous environment. Because each workplace is different, you will learn about your facility's specific hazards during your hands-on training. Some of the more common forklift hazards are chemical exposures, leaks, and other emergencies. You may need to wear special personal protective equipment called PPE to protect against hazards like chemicals, noise, or dust particles. Some common types are designed to protect your eyes, hearing, feet, or lungs. Your training will tell you the specific gear you need and how to fit and wear it correctly. You also might be working where leaks or other emergencies could occur. In those cases, your training will help you understand the hazards and know what to do if a leak occurs or an alarm sounds. One of the most hazardous environmental conditions is created by the forklift itself. Trucks operating on gasoline, propane, and diesel fuel create hazardous fumes and carbon monoxide. Battery-operated lifts give off hydrogen gas that's explosive. Always be sure the ventilation system is working properly when operating a forklift indoors. Never disable fans or close doors because it's too cold or noisy. Be especially careful not to shut garage or freight doors during cold weather. Operators and co-workers are overcome by carbon monoxide fumes every winter when toxic vapors gather in closed warehouses. Because carbon monoxide is odorless, you can be overcome without warning. Symptoms include feeling weak, sleepy, dizzy, or getting a headache. If you develop any of these, turn off your truck and get to fresh air immediately. Many people who develop these symptoms assume they are getting the flu and keep working. If your facility uses carbon monoxide detectors, heed their warning alarm. It's always safest to leave doors and windows open and air handling units operating, even if it means wearing warmer clothing. Operating in hazardous locations is the final hazardous operating condition that you might encounter. Some forklifts cannot be used around food products or processing because of hazardous emissions. For the same reason, some trucks cannot be operated in confined areas. Because chemical vapors and grain, metal, and fiber dust can explode, only trucks with special non-sparking and low-heat safeguards can be used where they are present. Find out the areas where your truck is permitted and stay within those boundaries. Crossing into forbidden territory could expose you to hazardous chemicals or set off a fire or explosion. In the last few minutes, we've explored the operating requirements and special hazards involved with being a certified forklift operator. If you're a new operator, this information will help you to master hands-on training. If you're a seasoned veteran, it will help you sharpen and refresh your skills. It's difficult to be an expert forklift operator. Conditions and equipment keep changing. Even your day-to-day work requires constant planning and judgment because every load, every lift, and every situation is different. For some of you, this program is full of new information that you are struggling to absorb. For others, you think there's nothing new to learn. But the pros know there's always something they don't know, some new piece of equipment, some new procedure to master. The pros take all the training they can get, because you never know when one bit of information, one new technique might be the very one you'll need tomorrow, or the one that will prevent a terrible accident and save your life.